Sometimes the person you miss isn't even real. Sometimes you're grieving a version of someone that only ever existed in your mind. And the most painful part is that you know it. You know they never showed up that way in reality, yet you still ache for them. You still replay moments that never truly happened, and you still hold on to a feeling that wasn't mutual, but felt so real inside your chest. I didn't understand this for a long time. I kept thinking I missed them. The way they laughed, the way they talked, the little moments we shared. But the truth is, I was missing something. I created a version of them I built in my mind piece by piece. A version that felt safe, warm, kind, present, and emotionally awake. But the real person was nothing like that. They were distant, half in, half out, sometimes gentle, sometimes cold, always confusing, always leaving me guessing about where I stood. You know that feeling, when someone gives you just enough to keep you invested, but never enough to actually make you feel chosen. When they say the right things but never follow through. When they show affection in moments and disappear the second it starts to feel real. When they keep you close enough to feed your hope, but far enough to protect their freedom. And somehow you fall for the version they could be, not the version they actually are. And that's the part that breaks you. Not the loss of them, but the loss of the potential you imagined, the soft future you pictured with them, the conversations you rehearsed, the healing you believed they could bring, the connection you thought would grow, the story you played in your head late at night when you couldn't sleep. That's what your heart attached to, not the real person, but the dream of them. It's wild how our minds work, how trauma can make fantasy feel safer than reality, how loneliness can turn crumbs into meals, how hope can blind you to the truth sitting right in front of you. You weren't in love with that person. You were in love with the version of them you created. The version who listened, who cared, who showed up, who stayed. The version who wasn't emotionally unavailable, inconsistent, or incapable of loving you back. If we're being honest, the real version of them never truly saw you, never truly understood you, never held your heart with both hands. They took your softness, but never offered their own. They loved the way you made them feel, but not the way they were supposed to make you feel. And deep down, you knew it. You knew that if they were really the person you imagined, you wouldn't be crying over them. You wouldn't be replaying moments. You wouldn't be asking yourself what you did wrong. Because someone who loves you the way you deserve doesn't make you guess. They don't make you doubt your worth. They don't let you feel alone while standing right beside them. But the mind is powerful, especially when you've been starved of emotional safety, especially when you've spent years learning to survive off hope instead of reciprocity, especially when you've been trained to fall for potential instead of presence. And that's why you miss them, not because they were your person, but because the version in your mind finally gave you the things life never did. When you finally meet someone who shows you a glimpse of what love could feel like, even if it's fake, even if it's fragile, even if it's never consistent, your heart attaches anyway, because the wound inside you recognizes something familiar, something comforting, something that feels like home, even if it hurts. You don't miss them, not truly. What you miss is who you hoped they would become, the way you believed they would show up once they healed, once they understood, once they realized your value, once they grew, once they changed, but change never came. Understanding never came. The love you imagined never came, and you stayed loyal to the idea long after the reality abandoned you. Your heart held on to a ghost, and ghosts are tricky. They don't argue, they don't disappoint, they don't show you their flaws, they don't contradict your fantasies. They live exactly how you create them. They love you the way real people can, perfectly, softly, consistently, the way you've needed love your whole life. And that's why letting go feels impossible, because you're not letting go of a person. You're letting go of a world you built to survive. You're letting go of the hope that kept you warm, the belief that kept you steady, the imagined future that made you feel chosen for once. But here's the truth, and it hurts, but it will free you. You cannot heal while holding on to someone who only existed in your imagination. You cannot grow while waiting for a version of them that will never arrive. You cannot find real love while clinging to a fantasy. And I know how it feels, because your heart doesn't want to hear logic. It only wants to return to the place where it felt something. Even if that feeling came from a lie, the mind wants meaning. Even if it has to create it, the heart wants comfort. Even if it has to imagine it, and the soul wants connection. Even if it has to settle for an illusion. But there comes a moment, a painful one, where you finally sit with the truth, where you admit to yourself, they never loved me the way I loved them. They never tried the way I tried. They never showed up the way I showed up. And you realize that missing someone isn't proof that they were right for you. It's proof that you were willing to give everything, even to someone who gave almost nothing. You're not weak because you held on. You're human. You're a person with a heart that feels deeply, with love that runs heavy, with hope that wants to believe in people's softness, even when their actions prove otherwise. You're not foolish. You're loyal. You're not desperate. You're devoted. You're not broken. You're wounded. And wounds don't heal by holding on to fantasies. They heal by returning to reality, by understanding that you deserve a love that actually exists, a love that stands in front of you, not one you have to imagine in your head. The version of them you miss wasn't fake. It was a reflection of your own capacity to love, your own kindness, your own depth, your own ability to see beauty even in damaged places, and that's something to be proud of, not ashamed of. You love the way you wish someone would love you, and that's beautiful. But now it's time for someone to actually meet you there, not just in your imagination, but in real life, with real effort, real intention, real presence, real consistency. Someone who doesn't make you earn love through pain, someone who doesn't make you translate mixed signals, someone who doesn't make you create versions of them just to survive the loneliness, someone who exists as beautifully as you imagine. And maybe that person isn't them. Maybe it never was. Maybe they were only meant to show you what you never want again. Maybe they were the lesson, not the destination. Maybe they were the mirror reflecting all the ways you've been loving from wounds instead of wholeness. And maybe the version of them you created wasn't a lie. Maybe it was a message from your future, a preview of the love you're actually meant to receive, not from someone who couldn't choose you, but from someone who won't hesitate for a second. The pain you feel right now isn't punishment. It's the ending of an illusion, and endings always hurt, especially when the fantasy felt better than reality. But one day, you'll look back and realize you weren't missing them. You were missing the person you needed, the comfort you deserved, the love you were starving for, and you'll see that they never had the capacity to give it to you, not because you weren't enough, but because they weren't capable. And that realization will set you free, slowly, gently, piece by piece. You'll stop replaying moments that never existed. You'll stop waiting for closure that will never come. You'll stop hoping they'll return as the person you dreamed of, because you'll finally understand that you're not supposed to miss a fantasy. You're supposed to outgrow it. You're supposed to step into a love that's real. And when you do, you won't crave the version of them that never existed anymore, because you'll finally have something that does. If you and I are anything alike, and you want to keep walking this path with me, then subscribe.